Early on the morning of Monday, August the 29th, Katrina finally hit New Orleans, roaring in with terrifying force. This truly was a hurricane from hell.
The rain was horizontal. It was just blowing straight through the house. You know, chunks, bits of trees and stuff, and you could hear this kind of, the sound was, it sounded like the War of the Worlds. It was kind of
the intensity of it is, it's like as if someone is just lifting you up and by your elbows and giving you a bear hug and pressing you at the temples at the same time, periodically for 5 or 10 seconds, for hour after hour.
The levees were breached on all sides as a great tide of water engulfed almost the entire city. With no escape, people began to die. The catastrophic failure of the levees came as no surprise to Joe Suheda.
This flood wall did break, and for some number of days, water continued to fill first the northern part of the city and eventually all the way up to the French Quarter. The levees are designed to a certain level of threat. The fact that they were designed to a Category 3 storm means that if the force, if the hurricane intensity was greater than 3, then the actual forces that would be applied to the structure would be greater than they were designed to withstand. And like anything, if you put a 500-pound weight on a beam or a road that supports 400 pounds, it's going to break.
Maintaining the levees was the responsibility of the U.S. Army. But as military engineer Al Naomi admitted, the barriers were no match for Hurricane Katrina.
Bottom line is, they weren't designed to withstand the storm surge that they encountered. If you're going to have a storm of this power come into the city and attack the levee protection system, it's likely, and you would have to assume, that something is going to happen to that protection system. There's going to be a failure or a compromise of that protection system in some way.
The local emergency services were at full stretch, but the scale of the disaster was so overwhelming that at times the task seemed hopeless. Conditions in the city worsened by the hour as desperate people lined the streets waiting for help, which, for a great many, would never arrive. As New Orleans spiraled into total chaos, troops were sent in, both to help in the rescue effort and to maintain order. Lieutenant General Russell Honoré was in charge. One of the first things he did was rein in what he regarded as the heavy-handed attitude of the local police towards people suspected of looting.
I told them, guns down. These people are already victims. They're not criminals. They're poor, they're tired, they're hungry.
In reality, most of them were just trying to find food for their starving families. After devastating New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina moved further inland, finally dissipating over the Great Lakes and the Canadian border on August the 31st. The great storm resulted in nearly 2,000 deaths and is estimated to have cost more than $200 billion, a staggering sum, making it the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. Much of this was due to the failure of the levees at New Orleans. But there are still those, like Joe Suheda, who feel that the catastrophe could have been avoided.
It was like a cheap disaster movie. I felt really sick because it was a tragedy that could have or should have been prevented. I had phone calls saying, why didn't you call someone about what you saw happen? And I said, what was there to tell people? We had laid this out in very great detail for years.
District Emergency Director Walter Mestry also expressed his frustration that no one had listened to him either.
No one should say, oh my, we didn't know, we didn't realize. I was certainly one of those who both locally, nationally, and internationally spread the word that New Orleans was the worst case scenario community for a landfalling Category 4 or 5 hurricane.
Rebuilding the shattered city of New Orleans will continue for a long time to come. Rebuilding the lives shattered by Hurricane Katrina will take even longer. When Hurricane Katrina overwhelmed New Orleans, it resulted in widespread devastation and loss of life.